what you have, I noticed the topic was talking about taking the OCL and translating it to SQL.
Yeah.
And so I'm very interested in that because there's obviously some things that could be improved on that. And I'd like to see that happen.
Yes.
There are, though, maybe I was too quick there to judge, because I guess the things that I'm working on now are actually within the ecospace resource management, you could say. So I think it might be, it's a good thing. I'll try to remember it. But you could say there will be new APIs that could look into how a running ecospace does its resource management over time. I don't know if that has any bearing on whatever you're doing, but that's one topic that's been going on for weeks now that I'm looking into, how to make it leaner and more doesn't garbage collect as much.
Okay. Better performing?
Yeah, let's see if we can get started here with what so since last time did a few things on the PS evaluation, and the PS evaluation is the what we mean with turning the OCL language into SQL and handing it over to the database to use some of its functionality that possibly then can reduce the memory footprint of we don't need to load stuff if we only want to sum them up, for example. So let's start with creating a simple model to start with. So that would be a good walkthrough of all the functions that I would use when prototyping new stuff. And of course, since we have this
Are you screen sharing or something?
Okay, I'm talking as if I were, but I'm not.
I got that feeling. It's like it sounds like he thinks he's screen sharing.
Yeah, and share. Good. Like that. Let's see if I can remove this double screen, because I don't know why that is. If I do stop presenting, it won't be any good. And if I... Yeah. Okay, I should have figured that out by now, but I haven't. So I hope you see my screen now. And I'm recording this, so it's a bit bigger share than what's on the film. So the film is only this size. But yeah, as I was saying, I'm gonna use the new functions to create the new model as well. So I'm gonna ask ChatGPT to add a customer class to the model, and add a name attribute. Good. From there I want to add a sales event. In lack of a better word. And add a relation from customer to sales events. Let's see if it figures out that it should do a multi-link there. Yeah, it did a many-to-many, so I'm just gonna go ahead and help it a bit say that it's going to be 1 here for make it easier. So add value as a double to sales event. So that's gonna be the actual sales value in this case, and gonna add a date for the sale as well. And it figured out it should be a date time, so that's good. So now we have a small model where we can consider that we want to let's say that we have 10 customers. So let's get some test data going. I'm gonna save this and I'm gonna upload it to my running MDriven server. And of course, if we don't have an MDriven server, we could run it straight against the SQL server. But for now, I'm gonna run it here and see that new stuff were created for me. So that's good. If I didn't have an MDriven server, I can just as easily run the prototyping against a SQL server directly here, or an SQLite or Compact or this Vista DB. We don't have all the options here, but this is good for prototyping. Now, if I want to get some test data in here, there are several options, but my favorite is to start the prototyper against the MDriven server, which currently runs on localhost 5006, and start the system to that and start a debugger for that. And then I turn on action, and then I can say that possibly I want 10 customers added. So I'm gonna do a set of 1 to 10, and I'm gonna collect over that. And in this collection, turn on the OCL editor to make it easier to see. I'm gonna have a loop variable called index, and that will be my number 1 to 10, and a pipe variable. And I want to do a new customer. Let C equal customer create in, and in what? In this here, I want to have C dot name then, which is the property that we added, and I want to call that C plus index as string. So that would be one way to get some test data going. And since this is collecting, I will get something back. And what will I get back? Well, it's the last argument given in the function, and that would be the name. So I would get the collection of names back, but I would rather get the customers back. So I'm gonna add another action with a semicolon and say that I'm gonna return the C, which is the created customers. And now I see that the collection returned back is customers. Good. So on that collection that I got here then, which is a collection of customers, I might want to create some test sales data. So I'm gonna do that for I'm gonna collect each C here, and I want a set of maybe 1 to maybe it could be random how many sales I want. So then I would go integer random. Let's say there can be from 0 to 30 sales. And so I have a set of 0 to 30, and I want to collect over that. So this will be my sales index, and for each of these I want to create a new sales event, call that SE, and sales event dot create in. So I have a new sales event. I'm gonna do some indentation here. So for the sales event, I want to set a value, and I want that to be a double, and I'm gonna make that random between 0 and let's say 1000, and maybe it didn't lie. Double does not conform. Okay, let's give it an integer value. I'm not sure why it would. I could make it like that and divide it by 10 to get some reasonable numbers with some fractions. Okay, so that's the value, but then I need to set the date also. The sale date, it called it. So I'm gonna assign a let's see how we do that. Date, time, create, and here we also want to do it random. Let's pick everyone this year, but we can take integer random on the months between and then we don't want the 0 because that will fail. Can go up to 12, and we add 1, so then we can't go up to 12, we add 11, and the same for the dates. And here we can safely go to we might hit February, so we go up to 27 then, and so that would constitute my test data. If you ever consider doing this and you put a lot more data in it than you think will be safe with one save loop, you probably would want to save continuously during this loop. So this of course won't be that much data, but it's safe to this is part of the debugger functionality, that it acts just like a view model, so you have this self VM variable available here as well. So now I just executed it out of mistake, so I'm gonna press cancel on that, and so that is removed, and I'm gonna put in the save on each for each customer that we have put in sales data into, just to prove that point. Let's see. So for after this collect, which will happen for each outer collect, I'm gonna do self VM and call save to do this in batches. And now when I hit this, it saved a couple of times, and this type it returned back was actually the last type in this collection, outer collection, so that was the view model reference type. So we can't do much with that, but good. If we now add an expression, of course in OCL we could easily go like customer all instances and do a collect over the customer and have the customer, and this is a collect, so it will generate a tuple for us, and we can go to customer.sales and get the what was it called, the value back. And for the value we could call the function sum, and this is why we are strongly typed, because we can never spell anything right. Let's see, so I'm gonna click here on to see the customer is called, okay, attended events. Well, that was a yeah, and now apparently I didn't actually assign this, because if I would have assigned the sales event to the customer, I would have noticed that this was strangely named by the chat function. So I'm gonna head back and might as well do this the right way to say that this shouldn't be named attended events, it should be named sales. But in order for the evolution, the evolve of the database, it shouldn't destroy the data. So I'm going to put this one as former name, so that we remember that, and then I'll put this one as sales. So now the model is completely different, so I need to upload that to the database to see what it does. And didn't report much back. Let's head back to the debugger again. Now this one still runs against the old model, so I need to reread the model and see if this one would work. And it did work, but since it apparent, yeah, I never assigned the actual sales event that I created to the customer. So what I should have done when doing my test data was to set the C, which is the incoming collection here, sales dot add, and put in the SE value. And then I'm gonna execute that again, and then I got an error saying that let's see why that would be. Okay, so I'm gonna cut this out, and I think there's an issue when doing the reread of the debugger. The variables aren't fully created, so the self VM isn't there. Just work around that. I'm gonna restart it this way, and I'm gonna run it. And now if I run this one, I can see that I have a few customers here that those were the I created in the first batch, and these are the ones that I created in the second batch, so I get the values here. Of course, this is nothing new. What's the problematic with this is if I do yet another expression and ask sales event all loaded objects size, I will get there's 127 objects loaded, and of course that's nothing because we're only working on small sizes here, but the thing is that we needed to load all the sales event objects as to calculate this sum. So if I reread the model, and now the system is restarted, and I check how many sales event objects that we have loaded into memory, the expected value is 0. And if I were to run this and then ask again, it's 127. And that's because this is a random number, so I don't really know how many it did per each. So this is the issue that we want to address, that but because we can also see if we add another expression to say how many customers have we loaded. Customer all loaded objects size. So there's 20 customers loaded. Reread the model and switch this over to OCLPs. And this hasn't been possible before to actually send in a tuple like this, but it is now in the newer versions. And if I execute this, I get the same result almost. I didn't get the first 10 that didn't have any sales because I did a join over sales and that was null. So those were removed for me because SQL works a bit different than OCL in how we treat navigating over empty links. And now if we check how many sales events we actually have in memory, none. And how many customers do we have in memory? 10. So this is the good thing about this, and this is also possible to do some advanced or semi-advanced things within here. So we could say that we're only interested in a sale event called S, where S, and then we would check the time. For example, what was it? The sale date should be bigger than, for example, then I would give it a hard number here, 2023, and let's make it today. And we're still in the PS mode, and we execute that, and then we got some hopefully other numbers here. Let's see if these numbers change. If I change this to 1, so we are in Jan, and press F5, these numbers go up. And if I switch it to 11, so that we are in November, these values goes down, and there are even some customers that actually don't have sales there. So that's expected and okay, and we still haven't loaded any of the sales event objects. So this is a good thing. If I I might want to use this functionality within an association, derived association, or derived attribute or something to well, maybe, but let's say I want to use it in an expression within a UI. This expression will only run in OCLPs, but to bring all the functionality from OCLPs into the main engine and make it easy to consume, we have a few OCL operators to fix that. So I'm gonna add yet another expression and keep it at OCL, and then I'm gonna go into edit and say that these are available on type. So on the customer type, I'm gonna go PS eval, and we have all these eval tuples, this one is new, and eval value. So after the fact that we actually are able to do the tuple, one may argue that the value has played out its role, but it's like that from time to time. So we're gonna do the tuple, and this takes a couple of arguments. I'm gonna talk them through. The first argument is an expression that's up to you, but it's supposed to end up in a tuple, and it will be translated into OCLPs. So I'm going to take that from the clipbook. The second argument is if we have a cap on how many we want to limit the search to, and I'm going to put -1, meaning no cap. This is the max integer, so take as many as you find. The third argument is the paging. If we were to start at page 10, if we only took 10 at a time, we would maybe need to page it into 2 because we have 20. And the last argument is really important because that's a thing that we actually can subscribe to. I'm just going to put in, here we can have any expression. And if that expression change, this complete expression will be re-evaluated. So this is a really good thing when reaching into persistent storage like this, because now we don't have any subscriptions to know when to refresh the data. But I'm going to put an empty string here until we put it in the UI. So now I'm in OCL, and I will execute this, and I get the same result back. I have this on November. I'm going to put it on June, and I get that result back, and I see that the sales event, all loaded objects, are still 0. So this is good. Now we have learned a lot, so we can go back to the model, and we say that we want some auto forms for this. Actually, that's part of the chat, so please update the auto forms. Like that. And then a new command in the chat is, can you start the app for me? Oh, start this system, I mean. Yeah, I thought you knew what I meant. True. That's pretty cool. And just asking the chat to do all these things for me, that it brought up the started the turnkey server. This is actually not the exact thing that I want to do right now, because I already have an MDriven server running, so I'm going to connect to that one instead. I'm going to use the values from this cloud dialog to restart the turnkey server to use that one, and it happily does that for me. And if I were to do like this, Yeah, I was a bit stumped because I was supposed, yeah, I need to save this, I guess, and it's crowded. Views. So where are my auto forms? Okay. Now I have the auto forms. I really need them to show. Okay. Let's see what I'm doing wrong. What am I missing? I have this long file name. I'm gonna go and start up this turnkey server beside to see if it has the auto forms, and it's just a live edit that acts up. Okay, so I'm gonna restart these servers to make sure that I have the 507 running. Go to that again. Yeah, now you're there, good. But still not the auto forms. Why would that be? Why would that be? Think. So I'm gonna check the actions, what it has said that it should be on the actions menu, and here the auto form action menu is present. And if I were to go here and say that I'm gonna run against the MDriven server and start the system this way and run the VPF variant, the auto forms are here, and the customer seeker is there, and I can find my customers, and if I go into a customer I can see the sales events for that customer. Good. But yeah, so what I'm doing wrong is when I'm running against the MDriven server, I actually need the turnkey application gets its model from the MDriven server. So I need to upload the after I've generated the auto forms. So that was the first. It's still odd that the live edit didn't actually show the correct stuff, but I'm not too worried about that. So now I'm 5007, and if I refresh here I have the auto forms, and then I can search for a customer and bring up customer 1, for example, and see the sales for that customer. Good. But what I might want to do is to take this customer auto form for customer and massage it a bit. I'm gonna add a new nested thing, and I'm gonna change this a bit, and the default was the sales for this customer, but I want this that I have in the clipbook. So the PS eval expression, and that's going to return a tuple of customer and doubles. So this is, well, it's not, doesn't belong at a customer object, I guess, but let's have it there anyway, because it's not one customer, it's all customers. Never mind, I'm gonna have it there, and now I'm gonna put in something here. Let's put a variable here, so time to rethink. So that doesn't seem to be a variable. Do you want to add one? Yes, please. And let's make that an integer. So whenever that variable change, this expression will re-evaluate. So that's a good, easy way to make things update as you do something important in your other data. Actually, it would have been smarter to make it a date. So let's do that, because then we can send in the date and see the data change. So we say sales date. So whenever I put something starting with a V, it will assume I want to do a variable, and I want to do a date time variable. All right, good. And I want to use that variable instead of this hard-coded date here. So now it makes sense. Whenever this date is changed, this evaluation would recalculate. So I want to add a new column, just a generic column that shows this date, and I'm gonna call that sales date. So that date will be over here, and this grid will be over here, and this is still wrong because it says that it expects a sales event, but this is actually a tuple that we don't have a model type for, so I'm going to say derive it from the referring column, and that's fine. And then I'm going to add the columns that I find within this. And didn't get much help, but that was the customer, so I'm gonna go self.customer and put the name of the customer in the first column, and in the second column I'm gonna go with self. And then that one is called just part 2 because it didn't know what the hell it should make of the sum, like that. And I'm gonna rename this to name and sales sum, like that. Now we don't have any errors. It looks fine. I'm gonna upload it to the MDriven server, and once that has evolved, this application will automatically figure out that it needs to reload. And I'm gonna show the customer, and I have my new grid, and I see that the data pulled from the database is this, and if I were to set this to a specific date, it recalculates automatically without me needing to instruct it in any way. So this is a big efficiency thing, because now I can do large-scale calculations that the SQL server is really good at, filtering it along the way, react to live data that I have in some other object or some other perspective, show it like this as a tuple right in the UI, and if that doesn't fit my need, which it might not, you might want to have this data to massage it further, I would suggest that you simply would add a transient class that keeps these values, and fill that transient class, clear them all, and then instantiate new transient class connected to with the values from the tuple. And you could do that in one go, in one action, if that would be what you're looking for. So the aggregate functions that we do support in SQL Server is size and sum and average and max and min. So if I were to go to the UI and change this not to sum but max instead, and max value actually it's called in OCL, save that, and I need to upload it to the MDriven server because my turnkey server pulls the model from there. So now I can see the biggest sale from null date, but from June the 5th the biggest sale is these values. And if I put in 11 here, cool. So the same strategy that I'm doing here with the PS eval tuple, when I have something that I can subscribe on, and this doesn't have to be a variable or something simple, it can be something quite complex. It's just an expression, and we don't care about the value of the expression. We only care when something in the expression is invalidated, so when it changes. And we can do this for PS eval objects and also the PS eval value, and the value can only return one value. And what's new with this new tuples functionality, it can return a list of calculated values. So a word of warning that I've discovered working at this I can do like this, the tuple of more things. So one is max value and one is maybe the sum. Now these two values are calculated on the same amount of rows from the SQL server. So if I were to save that, and of course I would want to add the presentation of it, so I'm going to add a new column.
Now you're kind of returning a triple.
Yeah. So a tuple is just a common name for any kind of collected values. So if you think of SQL, it always returns tuples. It never returns fixed rows. It's just a coincidence that if you type star, it will take all the columns in the table. But they are called tuples because they are pasted the values from wherever. So written a piece on that in the wiki to explain what a tuple is. So I'm going to put part 3 here.
So, but the cool thing here that I'm seeing, right, is that when you get this result back, it's actually also a proper reference to the customer.
Exactly.
So you can actually, expand and easily get more things about it. So it's not like SQL where you get just a chunk of data and then it's like it's not live because here you're actually having the real reference of customer and extra information that is calculated. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, correct. So it's really good that we can mix calculated values, tuple values, with the object resolved objects from our mental model of what we have loaded so far. So it's a good mix of that. So now we have both here, and this is fine, but the word of warning comes in when we try to do a tuple return that uses SQL aggregate functions like max and sum for two different sets of rows. So if I were to turn this one the other way, we ask for the max value of all that are bigger than sales date, but the sum of all that are smaller than sales date. And that won't translate to SQL because this aggregate function is on the select row, and it will the where criterias are common for the complete select row, so it's not like in OCL. So this will actually give us the strange result, and probably it will customer, and yeah, it's confused. What do you mean? How can it be both? Yeah, I wouldn't trust these values. It's one of them that won, and yeah, of course, this is good because it's easy to verify. If we were to since we have we could just do the same thing with OCL in the grid result, but that of course will pull in all the sales objects. So I'm going to add a generic column here and then say self.customer, which is one result of the tuple, and from that take the sales, and from that take the value, and from that say sum. So that's one, and if I were to copy that to say max value, this will actually pull in the data and do it in memory. This might be fine if we just have like 30 sales, but it might be worthless if we have 1 million sales. I'm gonna upload that.
You didn't filter it at all now, Hans, but that maybe was intentional.
Yeah, I didn't. No, it wasn't. So if I put this at the 1st of Jan, then it would be equal with no filter. Oops, showing. Yeah, but then it's confused. There's one of these that are winning, and if I were to turn it back around, we should verify that it's. Yeah, we're running out of time. I'm not seeing here, so let's just turn.
Can I make a comment here?
Yes,
so
please.
That why is this a thing that is added, you could say, so late in the whole development of MDriven? Well, it's the reason is that the MDriven product is primarily focused on very interactive apps with editing, and this feature is a bit more like getting sums, getting report-ish data. So that's what you need to keep in mind. That's what Hans is talking about. When do you sum it up? Because we're used to in MDriven that anything you do, wherever you do it, just automatically updates everything, and that is not the case with OCLPs. So you need to keep that in mind. So basically, this is to get the performance gains. We kind of go a little back towards what everyone else is doing in the world. We're dumbing it down, you could say, this automatic update system to get the performance benefits. So that's why it's not there in everything you do in pure OCL. It's like fully auto-subscribed. You don't need to do anything to always show the correct data. Here you need to think a little bit as a designer.
So yeah, the max value works, but the sum seems doubled. So yeah, that's probably because this issue, when we ask for two things, we actually get two criteria, and I would suggest to keep this one to one criteria. So gonna do only the sum in this case, and then we can't use part 3 because that one became part 2, and then I'm gonna upload that. And then I'm gonna put a date. So one of them is calculated by the SQL server, and one of them is calculated in memory, so they should be the same. Good. And so that was basically the... Oh, everyone has been muted. Lars, sorry, everyone was muted. I don't know why. Can you say something, Lars?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Everyone was muted all of a sudden, I said. So if you said something just now, it wasn't on the tape. Yeah. So any last second questions? Last minute questions?
Will you be adding this to the link? Or we can use a link to instead of the OCL?
Yes, so this is pretty much available in the link implementation as well, because the link is actually interpreting what it can and turns it into OCL that turns it into SQL. So it's the same sort of logic.
Sounds good.
So and if you're typing C# directly, of course you want to do a link instead of OCL, because that's strongly typed within the C# environment. But we are more and more leaning to using OCL only to get all the benefits of tracking where things are used, and to get the performance boost when doing the view models. Because a view model like this, we can calculate everything that's actually used, and fetch things better than what we could otherwise. So now the sales event is back here, and it will be fetched because I put it in to check the comparison here. I think this would go away if I turn it off, because yeah, I'm gonna just return an empty string. Yeah, maybe this one doesn't care, it checks everything. But the fetching, the query planner will skip everything that's in PS evaluation. Yeah, very good. So this is documented on the wiki, and if you have questions, don't be afraid. Just you can post them either to this YouTube clip once it's uploaded, or send on to us directly, even maybe through Stack Overflow, or just email us.
Thanks, Hans.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.